Gonna be reading this freaking book. I'm doing an intro because this is mostly for the VOD. This is mostly for replay. So people, I was gonna do a series where I read the Book of Joy. The Book of Joy was not that joyful. It talked about prostate cancer, page one. Had a lot of big words for cities that I've never heard of. So I'm gonna be reading A Court of Thorns and Roses. Looking forward to this. It seems like it's going to be a more fun read. And, by the time this is all over, worst comes to worst, I read a freaking book. And I worked on my presentation skills. So that's good. I'm going to throw a question up. I won't be looking at the chat primarily. And anybody wants to come and mess around, as per usual, you're right the frick out of here. Oh, wait, whoops. If I do look up and see anybody being crazy rude or anything, then you're just going to get freaking muted, is all that is. I didn't mean to hide chat. All messages. The default is top messages for some reason. And what am I doing? Question. Yeah, let's do that. But yeah, so I'm gonna do an hour of this every day until the book is done. And when the book is done, we're gonna crunch the numbers. If they're not great, either choose another book or just keep doing the Instagram thing that's been going fairly well. I just need to continue on Instagram. But I also want to do the live streaming on here. I don't like live streaming on there. Yeah, I realized reading's pretty fun. I have to read during groove. And I just like to add like absurd inflection as much as possible. So we're going to jump into this. 20% off. Looking forward to that. For Josh, because you would go under the mountain for me. I love you. Josh sounds like a good guy. Oh, we got a little map here. Those are always fun. Chapter 1. The forest had become a labyrinth of snow and ice. I'd been monitoring the perimeters of the thicket for an hour, and my vantage point in the crook of the tree branch had turned useless. The gusting winds blew thick flurries to sweep away my tracks, but buried along with them any signs of potential quarry. Hunger had brought me further from home than I usually risked, but winter was the hard time. The animals had pulled in, going deeper into the woods than I could follow, leaving me to pick off stragglers one by one, praying they'd last until spring. They hadn't. I wiped my numb fingers over my eyes, brushing away the flakes clinging to my lashes. Here, there were no tellable trees stripped of bark to mark the deer's passing. What's up?
Raymond, I told you to stop leaving your shit in the toilet.
No, not right now, please. I just... Alright. Where was I? Here, there were no tellable trees stripped of bark to mark the deer's passing. They hadn't yet moved on. They would remain until the bark ran out. Then travel north, past the wolves' territory, and perhaps into the fairylands of Prithian, where no mortals would dare go, not unless they had a death wish. A shudder skittered down my spine at the thought, and I shoved it away, focusing on my surroundings, on the task ahead. That was all I could do. All I'd been able to do for years. Focus on surviving the week, the day, the hour ahead. And now, with the snow, I'd be lucky to spot anything, especially from my position up in the trees. Scarcely able to see 15 feet ahead. Stifling a groan as my stiff limbs protested at the movement, I unstrung my bow before easing off the tree. The icy snow crunched under my fraying boots, and I ground my teeth. Low visibility, unnecessary noise. I was well on my way to yet another fruitless hunt. Only a few hours of daylight remained. If I didn't leave soon, I'd have to navigate my way home in the dark, and the warnings of the town hunters still rang fresh in my mind. Giant wolves were on the prowl, in numbers. Not to mention whispers of strange folks spotted in the area, tall and eerie and deadly. Anything but fairies. The hunters had beseeched our long-forgotten gods, and I had secretly prayed alongside them. In the 8 years we've been living in our village, 2 days' journey from the immortal border of Prithian, we'd been spared an attack. The traveling peddlers sometimes brought stories of distant border towns left in splinters and bones and ashes. These accounts, once rare enough, would be dismissed by the village elders as hearsay, had in the recent months become commonplace whispers on every market day. I had risked much in coming so far into the forest, but we'd finished our last loaf of bread yesterday, and the remainder of our dried meat the day before. Still, I would rather have spent another night with a hungry belly than found myself satisfying the appetite of a wolf or a fairy. Not that there was much of me to feast on. I'd turned gangly by this time of year, and could count a good number of my ribs, moving as nimbly and as quietly as I could between the trees. I pushed my hands against my hollow and aching stomach. I knew the expression that would be on my two elder sisters' faces when I returned to our cottage empty-handed yet again. A few minutes of careful searching. I crouched in a cluster of snowy heavy brambles. Through the thorns, I had a half-decent view of a clearing and the small brook flowing through it. A few holes in the ice suggested it was still frequently used. Hopefully, something would come by. Hopefully. I sat through my nose, digging the tip of my bow into the ground, and leaned my forehead against the crude curve of the wood. We wouldn't last another week without food, and too many families had already started begging for me to hope for handouts from the wealthier townsfolk. I'd witnessed firsthand exactly how far their charity went. I eased into a more comfortable position and calmed my breathing, straining to listen to the forest over the wind. The snow fell and fell, dancing and curling like sparkling spindrifts, the white fresh and clean against the brown and gray of the world. Despite myself, despite my numb limbs, I quieted that relentless, vicious part of my mind to take into the snow-veiled woods. I need a sip of water real fast. This is more taxing than I thought it would be. Once it had been second nature to savor the contrast of new grass against dark tilled soil, or an amethyst brooch nestled in folds of emerald silk. Jesus, got water dripping all over the place. Got oh no, this one's dead. It's delicious though. Metamoon. I come from the moon. I wonder if this is gonna fuck my throat up. I don't think so. I think it'll be fine. Once I dreamed and breathed and thought in color and light and shape. Sometimes I would even indulge in envisioning a day when my sisters were married and it was only me and father, with enough food to go around, enough money to buy some paint, and enough time to put those colors and shapes down on paper or canvas or the cottage walls. Not likely to happen anytime soon, perhaps ever. So I was left with a moment like this, admiring the glint of pale winter light on snow. I couldn't remember the last time I'd done it, bothered to notice anything lovely or interesting. Stolen hours in a decrepit barn with Isaac Hale didn't count. Those times were hungry and empty and sometimes cruel, but never lovely. The howling wind calmed into a soft sighing. The snow fell lazily now, in big, fat clumps that gathered along every nook and bump of the trees, mesmerizing the lethal, gentle beauty of the snow. I'd soon have to return to the muddy, frozen roads of the village, to the cramped heat of our cottage. Some small, fragmented part of me recoiled at that thought. Bushes rustled across the clearing. Drawing my bow was a matter of instinct. I peered through the thorns, and my breath caught. Less than 30 paces away stood a small doe, not yet too scrawny from winter, but desperate enough to wrench bark from a tree in the clearing. A deer like that could feed my family for a week or more. My mouth watered, quiet as the wind hissing through the dead leaves. I took aim. She continued tearing off strips of bark, chewing slowly, utterly unaware that her death awaited yards away. I could dry half the meat, and we could immediately eat the rest. Stews, pies, her skin could be sold, or perhaps turned into clothing for one of us. I needed new boots, but Elaine needed a new cloak. And Nesta was prone to crave anything someone else possessed. My fingers trembled. So much food, such salvation. I took a steadying breath, double-checked my aim. But there was a pair of golden eyes shining from the brush adjacent to me. The force went silent. The wind died. Even the snow paused. We mortals no longer kept gods to worship, but if I had known their lost names, I would have prayed to them, all of them, concealed in the thicket. The wolf inched closer, its gaze set upon the oblivious doe. He was enormous, the size of a pony, and though I'd been warned about their presence, my mouth turned bone dry. But worse than his size was his unnatural stealth. Even as he inched closer in the brush, he remained unheard, unspotted by the doe. No animal that massive could be so quiet. But if he was no ordinary animal, if he was of Perithian origin, if he was somehow a fairy, then being eaten was the last of my concerns. If he was a fairy, I should already be running. Yet maybe it would be a favor to the world, to my village, to myself, to kill him while I remained undetected. Putting an arrow through his eye would be no burden. But despite his size, he looked like a wolf, moved like a wolf. Animal, I reassured myself. Just an animal. I didn't let myself consider the alternative. Not when I needed my head clear, my breathing steady. I had a hunting knife and 3 arrows. The first 2 were ordinary arrows, simple and efficient, and likely no more than bee stings to a wolf that size. But the 3rd arrow, the longest and heaviest one, I bought from a traveling peddler during a summer when we had enough coppers for extra luxuries. An arrow carved from the mountain ash, armed with an iron head. From songs sung to us as lullabies over our cradles, we all knew from infancy that fairies hated iron. But it was the ash wood that would make their immortal healing magic falter long enough for a human to make a killing blow, or so legend and rumor claimed. The only proof we had of the ash's effectiveness was its sheer rarity. I'd seen drawings of the trees, but never one with my own eyes. Not after the High Fae had burned them all long ago. So few remained, most of them small and sickly and hidden by the nobility within high-walled groves. I'd spent weeks after my purchase debating whether that overpriced bit of wood had been a waste of money or fake, and for 3 years the ash arrow had sat unused in my quiver. Now I drew it, keeping my movements minimal, efficient, anything to avoid that monstrous wolf looking in my direction. The arrow was long and heavy enough to inflict damage, possibly kill him if I aimed right. My chest became so tight that it ached. And in that moment, I realized my life boiled down to one question. Was the wolf alone? I gripped my bow and drew the string further back. It was a decent shot, but I'd never faced a wolf. I thought it made me lucky, even blessed. But now, I didn't know where to hit or how fast they'd move. I couldn't afford to miss, not when I had only one ash arrow. And if it was indeed a fairy's heart pounding under that fur, then good riddance after all their kind had done to us. I wouldn't risk this one later creeping into our village to slaughter and maim and torment. Let him die here and now. I'd be glad to end him. The wolf crept closer, and a twig snapped beneath one of his paws, each bigger than my hand. The doe went rigid. She glanced to either side, ears strained towards the gray sky. With the wolf's downwind position, she couldn't see or smell him. His head lowered, and his massive silver body, so perfectly blended into the snow and shadows, sank onto its haunches. The doe was still staring in the wrong direction. I glanced from the doe to the wolf and back again. At least he was alone. At least I'd been spared that much. But if the wolf scared the doe off, I was left with nothing but a starving, oversized wolf, possibly a fairy, looking for the next best meal. And if he killed her, destroying precious amounts of hide and fat, if I judged wrongly, my life wasn't the only one that would be lost. But my life had been reduced to nothing but risks these past 8 years that I'd been hunting in the woods, and I picked correctly most of the time. Most of the time. The wolf shot from the brush in a flash of gray and white and black, his yellow fangs gleaming. He was even more gargantuan in the open, a marvel of muscle and speed and brute strength. The doe didn't stand a chance. I fired the ash arrow, before he destroyed much else of her. The arrow found its mark in his side, and I could have sworn the ground itself shuddered. He barked in pain, releasing the doe's neck as his blood sprayed onto the snow, so ruby bright. It's kind of difficult to do, to be honest. Normally I have to read like a paragraph or two. So gonna take a little breath break, drink a little more water. Get some Metamoon in the mix. Let's check real quick how many pages this book is. I'm on page 7. It ends on page 416. So we're going to be doing this for a little while, to be honest. Let's get back to it. The wolf had just got hit by the arrow. The wolf, possibly a fairy. These people are really scared of fairies. Let's hope not. He whirled towards me, those yellow eyes wide, hackles raised. His low growl reverberated in the empty pit of my stomach. As I surged to my feet, snow churning around me, another arrow drawn. But the wolf merely looked at me, his maw stained with blood, my ash arrow protruding so vulgarly from his side. The snow began falling again. He looked, and with a sort of awareness and surprise that made me fire a second arrow, just in case that intelligence was of the immortal, wicked sort. He didn't try to dodge the arrow as it went clean through his wide yellow eye. He collapsed on the ground. Color and darkness whirled, eddying in my vision, mixing with the snow. His legs were twitching as a low whine sliced through the wind. Impossible! He should be dead, not dying. The arrow was through his eye, almost to the goose fletching. But wolf or fairy, it didn't matter. Not with that ash arrow buried in its side. He'd be dead soon enough. Still, my hands shook as I brushed off snow and edged closer, still keeping a good distance. Blood gushed from the wounds I'd given him, staining the snow crimson. He pawed at the ground, his breathing already slowing. Was he in much pain? Or was his whimper just his attempt to shove death away? I wasn't sure. I wanted to know. The snow swirled around us. I stared at him until the coat of charcoal and obsidian and ivory ceased rising and falling. Wolf. Definitely just a wolf, despite his size. The tightness in my chest eased, and I loosed a sigh. My breath clouding in front of me. At least the ash arrow had proved itself to be lethal, regardless of who or what it took down. A rapid examination of the doe told me I could carry only one animal, and even that would be a struggle. But it was a shame to leave the wolf. Sorry about that. Though it wasted precious minutes during which my predator could smell the fresh blood, I skinned him and cleaned my arrows as best I could. If anything, it warmed my hands. I wrapped the bloody side of his pelt around the doe's death wound after I hoisted her across my shoulders. It was several miles back to our cottage, and I didn't need a trail of blood leading every animal with fangs and claws straight to me. Grunting against the weight, I grasped the legs of the deer and spared a final glance at that steaming carcass of the wolf. He remained golden-eyed. His remaining golden eye now stared at the snow-heavy sky, and for a moment, I wished I had it in me to feel more remorse for the dead thing. But this was the forest, and it was winter. Chapter 2. Yeah, it's a bit of a struggle, to be honest. I like this book so far, though, so we're going to keep this up. Oh. Let's see. Stupid, smart, schoolboy, nod. Stinky poo-poo. I agree. Right, chapter 2. The sun had set by the time I exited the forest, my knees shaking, my hands stiff from clenching the legs of the deer, had gone utterly numb miles ago. Not even the carcass would ward off the deepening chill. The world was awash in hues of dark blue, interrupted only by shafts of buttery light escaping from the shuttered windows of our dilapidated cottage. It was like striding through a living painting, a fleeting moment of stillness, the blue swiftly shifting to solid darkness. As I trudged the path, each step fueled only by near dizzying hunger, my sister's voices fluttered out to meet me. I didn't need to discern their words to know they most likely were chattering about some young man or the ribbons they spotted in the village when they should have been chopping wood. But I smiled a bit, nonetheless. I kicked my boots against the stone door frame, knocking the snow from them. Bits of ice came free from the gray stones of the cottage, revealing the faded ward markings etched around the threshold. My father had convinced a passing charlatan to trade the engravings against fairy harm in exchange for one of his wood carvings. There was so little that my father was ever able to do for us that I hadn't possessed the heart to tell him the engravings were useless and undoubtedly fake. Mortals did not possess such magic, did not possess any of the superior strength and speed of fairies or high fae. The man, claiming some high fae blood in his ancestry, had just carved the whorls and swirls and runes around the door and windows, muttered a few nonsense words, and ambled on his way. I yanked open the wooden door, the frozen iron handle biting my skin like an asp. Heat and light blinded me as I slipped inside. Okay, the person's name is Fair, spelled different, so that might get a little confusing when I pronounce it, but Fair is the name of the main character, it appears. Fair! Elena's soft gasp scraped past my ears, and I blinked back the brightness of the fire to find my second eldest sister before me. Though she was bundled in a threadbare blanket, her gold-brown hair, the hair all three of us had, was coiled perfectly about her head. 8 years of poverty had stripped from her the desire to look lovely. Where did you get that? The undercurrent of hunger honed her words into a sharpness that had become too common in recent weeks. No mention of the blood on me. Oh. I'd long since given up hope of them actually noticing whether I came back from the woods every evening, at least until they got hungry again. But then again, my mother hadn't made them swear anything when they stood beside her deathbed. I took a calming breath as I slung the dough off my shoulders. She hit the wooden table with a thud, rattling a ceramic cup on its other end. Where do you think I got it? My voice had turned hoarse. each word burning as it came out. My father and Netza still silently warmed their hands by the hearth. My eldest sister ignoring him as usual. I peeled the wolf pelt from the doe's body, and after removing my boots and setting them by the door, I turned to Elaine. Excuse me. Her bare, her brown eyes, my father eyes, remained pinned on the doe. Will it take you long to clean it? Me. Not her. Not the others. I'd never once seen their hands sticky with blood and fur. I'd only learned to prepare and harvest my kills thanks to the instruction of others. Elaine pushed her hand against her belly, probably as empty and aching as my own. I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. How long have this has been? 30 minutes? Honestly, yeah, there's nobody in here anyway. And I don't want to get too ahead. So we're going to keep this up every day. We're going to stop at page 11. I was going to do an hour, but my throat and my voice, and my reading, my stamina for reading is low-key kind of hard to read out loud like that for a while. But that's part of why I'm doing this also. It's going to get easier each time. And I'm going into college next month. Yeah, next month. So I'm going to have to do presentations and shit. And this is an easy way. You know, it's low risk. The worst thing that happens is people talk shit, and I have to have, yeah, sorry, buddy. Let's see if there's like a small thing that I can read. Not really. I thought maybe there was like a forward that I missed or something that I could go over. But yeah, we're gonna do this every day. I have like drug and alcohol freaking groups until about let's say around 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. I'm gonna start doing this every day. I'm going to try to get up to an hour of continuous reading. We got about 30 minutes. I talked for a little bit, but so let's say I did like 25 minutes today. Hoping to bump it up to 35, maybe 45 minutes tomorrow. And yeah, I'm going to be on RuneScape. If anybody likes RuneScape, who's above the age of 21, you can join my guild. And also, if you want to donate to the channel, donate to me on RuneScape. Or once I get to the end of this book, we'll try to do like a book drive or something. If anybody has any specific, this is gonna take a long time. I'm thinking way too far. I'm future tripping on it. Thinking way too far into the future. That's page 11. We got 405 more to go. Hell yeah! Thank you. Oh shit. I've seen your name before. Yeah, no, I realized in the groups we have to read, and I was like, this is boring as hell. So when I got a chance to read, I was like, I'm gonna make this fun. And so a lot of people were like, damn, that's fun. So I'm gonna do it online from now on. Yeah, no, I'm gonna go back to playing RuneScape. I've been trying to finish a Deviant Spectre task for the entire day. I still have 50 left to kill, but and just my throat, and I'm a little worn out from reading 11 pages. But hopefully tomorrow we get more pages, and the reading a lot becomes easier. So tune back in tomorrow. Hold me accountable every day. We're gonna do this. We're gonna finish this mother freaking book. 416 pages. And if this book turns out, like, I like the fantasy stuff, I don't really like how they're like, oh my god, fairies are scary. You should have named the scary thing something scarier. You know what I'm saying? A fairy don't sound too scary to me. The scary thing should have been like, I don't know, a scary name, not fairy. But this is a whole series. There's like 4 more of these, and the other ones are even bigger. So if this one goes well, then we'll just keep going through the series. If by the time I finish this, I'm like, I didn't really like it that much, we'll get a new book going. But yeah, so I start the college stuff next month, so the reading and the public speaking and all that is going to be helpful skills. But yeah, I'm going on to RuneScape. Hope everybody had a good night. Have a good night. Stay safe. Have fun.